I'm wondering if you can talk about what was different writing this book from your previous books, and what it felt like to be writing a story that was so connected to your own personal history.
Yeah, that was the most ghastly, painful, and transformatively beautiful experience of my life, working on those two books, Hummingbird and Queen of America, because you know, this woman is an icon in Mexico, but a bit of a forgotten icon. She's a proto-feminist indigenous leader, and she plied her trade right before the Mexican Revolution, and when the Mexican Revolution happened, her story was kicked out of history and forgotten. And partially because she was indigenous, and partially because she was female. The male historians in Mexico just discounted her. And I had heard these stories my whole life. I grew up in this household with very powerful women in Tijuana, and many of them were storytellers, and they would tell me these crazy stories about your aunt. You have an Indian aunt, yeah, an Indian, yeah, she could heal the sick. I'd say, wow, that's cool. Yeah, she could raise the dead too. I'd say, what? You know? And then he goes, yeah, did you know your aunt could fly? I'd say, wow. But they also, you know, told me crazy stories like, you know, in the closet where I keep my girdle, Satan lives there, so don't go messing around. So, you know, you get to a certain age when you just think everything is just crazy myth, and then I started discovering that she'd actually lived. And I put in 20 years to research the first book. Both books together took 26 years. Over 10 years studying with medicine women and shamans. Talk about a Western experience. And, you know, that was just mind-boggling. But the first book, people ask me, why didn't you just do a big, giant Mishnah book? And I say, it is a big, giant Mishnah book, but we split it in half because I think it would simply kill readers. It's way too much. Her life is broken up in two clear parts. The first half of her life was in Mexico learning the technology of the sacred and becoming this saint. Then she's expelled from Mexico and comes to the United States and becomes Lady Gaga. She's all of a sudden a celebrity. What? You know, photographed, and thousands of fans and autographs and tours around America. And, you know, she goes from being a barefoot, illegitimate child, a slave's child on a hacienda, to being a woman who's hanging with the Vanderbilts here in New York City, and Gibson Girl full. The journey is mind-boggling to me. And when I was thinking about this, and we used to sometimes be a little, I don't know if Geoff even remembers this, but he mentioned Devil's Highway, Perfect Storm. There was a little point where we used to call it the perfect dust storm. I don't know if you remember that. And when I was working on these books, I always thought of Hummingbird. I used to tell him, it's Lonesome Dove with miracles. I said, but the hard part is the second book is Ragtime with miracles. How do you write that? And she came to the United States, but I realized at a certain point that it's almost like a science fiction novel. This person comes from this agricultural planet, and she gets on a spaceship, which is a steam locomotive, and lands on this futuristic planet that's got automobiles and electric lights and movies and hot air balloons. And she had to adjust to two worlds. And so when she got here, she has to deal with how do you still stay true to your medicine training and your sacredness in this place, where almost everything to her is a miracle and astonishing. And one of my favorite scenes in the book is when she too finally comes to New York with all the other immigrants, but she comes the wrong way. She's coming from the west, and she enters the back way on a train where everybody else is coming from the east, but she's here.
I think the great thing about not making them one giant book is that you can really read Hummingbird's Daughter, and it feels fully closed. It can stand alone as one book, and Queen of America can stand alone as one book, and then you can read them side by side and have.
Or in reverse order.
Or in reverse order.
Yeah, I try to design them to stand alone. It's ironic. There's some film people who had read Queen of America and wanted to option it, had no idea it was the second part of the story. They're like, what, there's another one? I said, yeah, it's actually part two, so now they're reading the first part.
What's another one?
Yeah, buy them all. But
can you speak to how it's different to edit Luis when he's writing nonfiction versus fiction?
Yeah. Geoff? Because he's brutal no matter what.
But in the best way.
Like personal trainer.
You are. That's right.
Making you stronger.
The Jillian Michaels of.
Well, I think Luis has a better perspective on the edit itself in terms of reception of it and what it changes or not in the text. He's an easy edit. And you have to start with really good writing. Like there are things you cannot inject into a manuscript. You cannot inject intelligence. It's like there or not. You can fake it. You could add stuff. You could do these things. You can prompt with lots of queries and questions. But at the end of the day, it just shows one way or another. You know, for I think a big distinction. It's not as relevant for you between nonfiction and fiction editing is with fiction. You're almost always going to allow more latitude for the style of the writer. There's not, I mean, if you had to simplify it, you know, nonfiction is like haiku and fiction is free verse or something. You know, there are very constraining rules for nonfiction, the most obvious being it has to be true. So you cannot create these spandrels of plot to fill holes. You can't, in a fiction edit you might be able to do it. I mean, your Hummingbird and Queen were very much based in fact. So there was a great nonfiction aspect to it. They were heavily researched. You could not invent the fact that, oh, she didn't come to New York, she went to Chicago. But there's that latitude of prose. Whereas in some nonfiction, you know, you have to have these essentials of you're arguing something, you're explaining something. Again, your arguments are very subtle. I mean, they're much more show than tell, so it wasn't as relevant. There are things with, when you talk about style, I don't, you know, I'm going to say I was light, he's going to say I was heavy. So that's why it's going to be interesting to hear from him. You have to learn a little bit about the writer's style and tonality. And one of the things that I'm very Germanic, Anglo-Saxon in my editing, and that, and for those of you who know poetry, there's something called a tonic. And, you know, it's very much, if you study medieval literature, you know all this stuff. If you look at different versions of, this is a serious digression. If you look at like something like, you know, Death of King Arthur or something, and there's the French and Germanic, you'll notice that in the English version, the big kind of poetic mode is alliteration, because in Germanic languages the accent is on the first syllable, whereas in Romance languages like the French, the accent is on the last syllable, which is why their poems and stuff rhyme. Whereas if you're reading stuff that's more Anglo-Saxon, it doesn't rhyme; it just has this literal thing. So one of the things that's nice about when you work with someone who's fluent in a Romance language is, first of all, you have to pull back my alliterative tendencies when editing, but you also find this great rhythm, you know, this incredible rhythm of these sentences. So I think with both of them it was going with that. But you, again, you could speak more to stuff. You've kindly referred to me in some ways.
Peckinpah?
Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah.
Remember the Wild Bunch? Yeah. I think Geoff thought perhaps I meant, you know, his use
Angry
of balletic intercutting. I was thinking more of the bloodbath, the spurting. No, you know, I think what's interesting to me is I've been edited for a really long time, but Geoff and I seem to have worked out a really nice, like he'll tell me it's missing a beat. And for some reason I know what he's saying. I say, well, beat, there's a beat there. Gotta find the beat. He's the kind of editor, I will tell you, you don't know this perhaps, but I was on the road when the edit of Devil's Highway came. And he said, don't freak out when you see the red. It's all right. I okay.
I point out that he has a red pencil on
Yes.
him.
Yeah, it's just happening.
Dude!
Keeping my notes over here.
And my beloved wife Cindy opened the package and apparently thought, oh my God, what is it? So she actually got on the computer and implemented his changes before I could see what he did to the page. So I got home and I thought, well, this isn't so bad. The guy hardly touched it. What, you know? One of the things Geoff did was, I had written the book chronologically, and Geoff lifted the middle section and put it in front. And it was, you know, it was like, oh, that's brilliant, because that everybody has responded greatly to my genius for starting, but you know, Geoff moved it. But I'll tell you, some of the things that I found fascinating, gave me faith in you, was when I started looking at the notes, when I could finally bring myself to look at the bloodbath. You had something like on page, I don't know, 50, and he had targeted a sentence. He said, this sentence goes at the bottom of page 175. I thought, wow, this guy is a detail man. But that was great. And so, you know, I think sometimes perhaps the issue between us is Geoff's practicality versus my more wild tendencies. So Geoff's sometimes trying to calm down now, boy, you know. One fart joke per book. Because I write about earthy people and earthy stuff. So when we were working on Hummingbird's Daughter, there was a moment when Geoff was removing all these miracles, and I said, "What's happening?" He said, "Taking some of that stuff out." And I said, "Well, that's the actual historical record. That's what makes it a historical. I'm not making that stuff up. That's on the record." So those are things, you know, we work out between us, and it's really fun. I actually have fun working on books together, and we fight sometimes, and Geoff always tells me passive aggressively, "Hey, it's your book if you want to keep it in." You know? So I take it out, but if it's really,
he's always right.
He is right. That's right. If it's really juicy, I tell him I'm going to put it in the next book, pal. And there was something from Hummingbird's Daughter that he took out that I put in Queen of America, and I think of that way. He was like, "I give up. You know, whatever. Keep it."
It is true that I'm a notorious prude, so.
You're a prude?
I think that there's also, I mean, with an editor, you have to prove it to the writer that he or she should trust you.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you can be as aggressive as you want, and I would say that I am very aggressive at times. But, you know, it is their book at the end of the day, and, you know, editors and editing should be invisible. If you notice it, there's been a failure. And so, you know, I think there are things that you can do where there are certainly structural things, like what you talk about. It's interesting that many editors, and I put myself in this camp too, are very mathematical. You know, it's like the people that do, like, well, it's Scrabble, how it turns out they, like, aren't word people, they're, like, math people.
Yes.
You know?
Because they can see a rearrangement. We played Scrabble recently over Christmas vacation. I'm terrible at it. You know, I like to think I'm good at words. But then one of my cousins, it was like, you could see it was like a mathematical thing. He clearly could see how it all fit together. And I just sat there like, he's on my team.
Yeah, so I think there's things like that you look for. And that, just to underplay, many of you have not read a draft. And you probably would recognize many of these things if you're a big reader going through it. But it's very pleasurable to work with Luis, and you know, I wish we just had more and more and more. It's just they're great, exhilarating books. And you know, he's a great optimist. You know, in the broadest sense. I mean, I think nearly every writer is an optimist at the end of the day, because you have some hope that there's something to say, and someone might want to hear you, no matter how depressing what you're writing about might be. But you know, this is one of the great optimists, I think, of American writing, in the way he looks at forgotten people and finds them valuable, the way he looks at the past and finds it very, very vibrant and colorful, the way he approaches things in literature. And so it's just really blissful to work on these books. And again, they're quite easy because they come in so smart and clean.
I think it's a great moment for us to open it up to questions.
I have a question for Geoff. You were saying something about a noticeable edit. What would that mean? How would you notice an edit?
Meaning, notice something that
If
he's
you're
doing?
If you're not
saying
visible.
if the editing is invisible, what would, I guess I'm asking what would then, if someone edited something poorly and it was noticeable, what, can you think of an example of what that would mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna qualify it as well.
Okay.
Oftentimes, you know, you might see books and they get reviewed and they're said that they were poorly edited. Sometimes they were, sometimes the writer just refused the advice. You know, I mean, there's that. It can be very painful for everyone. You know, any kind of jarring transition, weirdness of words. I mean, one of the things that I try to do is really look closely at usage so I can mimic. If I'm suggesting text, I think Luis will tell you, I will suggest a lot of text sometimes, not to take verbatim, but just to show you this is what I'm talking about. But I think jarring transitions, you could probably do it for any art if you're at the movies and just suddenly felt like there was a scene missing or something.
Or the end isn't satisfying. I feel like
Right.
the end is really hard and important. And
Or you know, if you've tried too hard to satisfy at the end, you know, I had a book in the beautiful North, and I just, you know, it had this great soap opera ending, and realized talking to Geoff, no, that's just too, you know, it's not right, it's too much. And we made it much more terse. And some people have complained about it, but I don't know that I always need to provide everything that people want. I always tell people, you know, that this is why it doesn't go on and on and on, because I'd be lying to you. My number one rule is don't lie in what you write, and that would have been lying in that you know, in the context of that book. But that's where editing came in really well for me. That there was a better way to end the book that had an internal honesty and left some things a little up in the air, because that's what the border situation is like. Those kind of things are you know, really, I think, good. I think a lot of books, I don't know if you're like us, my wife and I both read tons, and I can't tell you how often I put a book down and said, God, this should have been 150 pages shorter. Right? I don't know that people are subjecting themselves to the rigorous Sam Peckinpah bloodbath that maybe we need. And I think it's really good for us to do that and understand that, you know, we don't always have the vision to go it alone and crank it out. I think Delmore Leonard would probably just write a book and nobody even changes a comma. I don't know. He's probably perfect, but you know, I think it's an important process.
But even if he's not, you want everyone to think.
To think he is.
I mean, that's the whole thing. You know, and we had to, I forced that thing, Devil's Highway, down your throat with when you talk about nonfiction and fiction. There was a section near the end, the last 4 pages, and then there's the last page.
What a bastard this guy is.
I felt like we needed some more context, because it was so this, and so I convinced him to kind of do summative data of like how many people this and the weight of it, and it was very good for the first edition. And then it was
it's like, immediately out of date.
Dated badly. So when we do the 10th anniversary one, it will be gone and there'll be new material. So in that case, I steered you wrong.
Thanks a lot, Geoff. I would have won the Pulitzer.
Yes.
yes.
I would be grateful if you could discuss the business of books. Specifically, what as the publisher today do you do to promote and publicize books in 2013? Louise, as the author, what are you expected to do to help sell your books? And any other comments that you can make?
Wow.
That's a big question. It's a big one.
Let's let Geoff talk about that. It's a changing game. Right?
Yeah, I think you're
This is Julie's.
Yeah,
I
Julie's.
will say that I think you're posing the question probably in part because you've rightly taken from the landscape that things have changed a lot.
Of course.
And that there's enormous competition in the marketplace. We're unfortunately not back in the days of the early 90s where there are huge bookstores with miles and miles of books that people are wanting to buy. And I think that everybody's role, the author's role, the publisher's role, the agent's role is changing greatly. And I think, I don't even know if there is one particular answer of what we are expected to do, except I like to think everything we can.
Yes.
And something new and different every chance we can think of it. I don't know if you would both agree with me, but I think we are constantly evolving ourselves and trying to figure out how to connect books with readers in new and more effective ways every day, whether that means a reader who's reading on their iPhone or a reader who is going to a library, and everything in between.
I'll echo her. I mean, it's a very exciting time for writers. There's an incredible amount of great writing going on, and there are fewer barriers to entry for certain kind of publication. There are some things publishers will do that self-publishing just won't. You need it in advance. You know, you gotta go research something for 3 years. There's no one else. I mean, there might be foundations and stuff. There's an editorial work that goes on. I mean, it's very, very deliberate sensibilities of designing things. You can freelance a lot of stuff. And it's great that people can publish and present their books. Oftentimes there are incredible books that just don't get through publishers for all sorts of reasons. So if you want to do it, vaya con Dios, you know. But I think we are all, there's a whole confluence of stuff going on, which you're aware of. The decline of book review sections, the lock-in that comes to network effects from certain media getting in there. So we're in this liminal period as technology is transforming things. But I take great comfort from the fact that there is still so much phenomenal writing. There's more than you could ever keep up with, you know? And to me, the saddest thing about book publishing would be if that weren't the case. You know, if it was something where, all right, you had read it all. So what do they do? Like Lewis is on perpetual tour.
He's on
That's what he
the road
does. He's relentless.
300 days of the year.
Darn right.
Writers, you know, we use these terms that they seem very pejorative, like they brand themselves, they're out there, they promote. The same technology that's messing up some of the retail channels, the traditional retail channels are creating incredible opportunities for self-promotion, you know, for writers. But if you want to reach certain media outlets, you know, a publicist at a publishing house has those connections and does that stuff. There are certain things like that that are very useful. But it's actually a really cool moment for writers. And echoing Julie a little bit, every book is different. We would love for every book to be on the cover of the book review and to be on Bill Moyers and this stuff. And we try, but there's not an answer for you. And there never has been. Don't romanticize the past too much. I mean, there was really all sorts of trouble and bad times.
It was struggle.
Seriously, it's not, I mean,
I feel like ever since I got into publishing, everybody has been saying it used to be.
Yeah, right.
Publishing used to be so great. It's like, wow.
like Little Brown's really old, right? Last year was our 175th birthday. And we have all these things in archives. You can go back and you can look at the bestseller lists from however many years back you want to go. So much of it is garbage. It's horrible. Sometimes it's worse than what's going on. But you know, time curates. So what do we remember from Little Brown? We remember J.D. Salinger. We don't necessarily remember all the books that were on the list at the same time, including ones that we published. So I think we all have to be careful about stuff. But one thing I was going to add, just going backwards, about the editing and all this stuff, we've talked about this. I think actually the mixed blessing, but the most damaging thing for writing in the past 30 years is the word processor. If you want to talk about why books are flabby and poorly written and maybe been edited, it has to do with scheduling, but I think the word processor has been a disaster.
I would say for my part, the paradigm we find ourselves in now sometimes I think asks us as writers to be a little more superhuman than we were before. You know, we joke about me being on the road all year, but I found out to my great shock that people want to pay me money to have me be the trained monkey for an hour. And I said, really? I go up there and dance a little bit and you pay me all this money? Seriously? So, you know, in that sense, it never would have occurred to me before. You know, when I was coming up, you'd pay somebody $100 if you could go read at their school. And all of a sudden, you know, that's going on. You know, I think we take part. I mean, I couldn't do it if I weren't in partnership with my wife, who sort of runs Urrea Incorporated. You know, she's here, you can talk to her. Our beloved publicist Elizabeth is here from Hachette. So, you know, somebody wisely told me, do it for love or money. Don't do it for altruism. If you love what you do it, or if you're going to get paid, do it, and keep it that simple. And I thought at the time, wow. But I realized that that's really true. And one of the plans, Julie is the newest member of Team Urrea, or I'm the newest member of Team Bearer, I guess is more true. But you know, one of the rules I realized that I had to establish for myself, because I think the world is very harsh for us now, especially, is you know, I wanted to be in a circle of trust and love. And it's really difficult when you're working with people who don't quite get it or don't. You know. And people always have a kvetch with publicity, publisher, bookstores, agent. We're human beings and we're Americans. I think it's the Constitution. Americans may bitch. I think that's true. But to have a circle of people who you feel love with and community with is incredible. You know, Little Brown suggested to me, go do social media. I thought, are you kidding me? What?
He's a natural. Follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, we're good on Twitter. In fact, brilliantly, these guys put my Twitter handle on the new book cover, and people are just showing up out of all of a sudden, like, wait, that was the way to get Twitter followers? Put it on the book cover. But I started doing that, and Facebook, and it's turned out to be a wonderful thing. I was one of the first authors to do a full-on website, starting a long time ago. Those things have been really great. We try to do stuff, you know, like Liz has made, or the company's made tote bags. You know, little stuff. You know, my wife and I do what I call the postcard ministry. Every book, we design postcards for the characters. Or so, like Into the Beautiful North is about a town that doesn't exist. So I found photographs of funky towns in Mexico, and we did comedic postcards, and we'd send it to fans. Somebody in the book has a restaurant, so we had a guy design a fan, an actual fan with his logo on it, and fans could get that fan. Little things like that that just make it more of an event.
You're doing your own merchandising.
A bit, yeah, yeah.
But it's not selling it.
No, it's gifts.
It's
gifts.
like for promotional stuff, so it's giveaways.
It's gifts, yeah.
So the thing I would say that is, to me, a model to some extent. Not everyone can do this because you have your various tethers in life, but when we gave you the advance for Devil's Highway, you bought a van. That's what it was, because he was like, I'm going to be out there. He and Cindy.
And we went on the road thousands and thousands of miles. We called it the Little Brown Van. Yeah.
And so there was that sense of realizing, like, you build the audience. And as much as you can have these huge breakthroughs, like you're on that one TV show and you have the bump, at the end of the day, a lot of these writers grind it out to reach a kind of critical mass.
In the back.
Thank you. I don't know if you found Julie through a pitch letter. I somehow don't think so. But for those of us just at that point, do you have any pointers about, you know, you're a writer, you're not a marketer, but you have to market yourself and pick a genre that you fit into, and, you know, any advice about that sort of thing?
Well, I'm not the best guy to talk to about picking a genre because I hop around. You know, I find the agenting part of all of this really difficult, and it's really hard to find, I think, the person that's right for you. And a lot of people really struggle with it. But once you find that person, things really improve. I had my last agent thanks to, I came to Geoff with no agent. He called me, and I was like, dude, I remember when Geoff sent me an email, I called my wife and I said, something's really wrong. And she said, what? I said, this guy from Little Brown's asking me to work with him. Like, this doesn't happen. I don't know what to do. And she said, don't be stupid. Call him back. You know? And just to show you what it's like when you're dealing with the big kids, he said, you know, you're going to be dealing with Little Brown's massive publisher. You need representation. And I went to this agent who I thought was a good agent, and it didn't work out. And so weirdly, we were at an event at Aspen, and my wife was complaining about the other agent to Julie. And Julie was like, are you kidding? They did what? And she was she said, I am not trying to be your agent, but these are the things you need to do. Look around and then we were like, well, how about you? We love you. So sometimes it really is, you know, you're having a glass of vino with somebody and you realize it's like speed dating, right? Like, well, I like you. That can happen.